Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Hour number 2, Wednesday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show from Radio Row here, Super Bowl 59. Appreciate the folks at LeBear's Baton Rouge for making all of this possible. As we've talked about a lot over the last 3 days, our first gig here at ESPN Baton Rouge at the Super Bowl. It's great that we get to welcome our next guest, not her first Super Bowl. You'll recognize the voice from NFL on Fox, certainly Westwood One. She is Laura Okmin, going to be working the sidelines for the Super Bowl coming up on Sunday. Not your first time. We appreciate a little bit of time here, but this is old hat for you, right?
It's so funny. I'm sitting here, as you said that, thinking of the difference of aging, because if I would have been here 10 years ago, it's like you get nervous, like, oh, I don't want to make it sound like I've been doing this so long. And then you get to a certain age, Hunt, and you're like, yes, it's been a long time. I want credit for every single one of these. It is not my first Super Bowl. I think my first one was 92.
Okay.
So it's been a while.
That was in my childhood when I was a big Cowboys fan. I was a big Cowboys. I have fond memories of that. That was my Cowboys winning. And I think Quincy Carter started taking snaps in the mid-'90s, and that just went away. And now I have never gotten it back. But it was great back then because they were winning a lot.
How old were you?
And that was 5.
I figured that was the let's not go there. But can I tell you what I remember from that Super Bowl?
Please do.
I was a child, not as young as you, but I was so over my head. I was at a station in Montgomery, Alabama, and doing all my shooting. And at a time there were not many women. It was over 30 years ago. I had a lot of heavy equipment. And I'm so excited to cover the Super Bowl. And I have a real close spot to Emmitt Smith, who was in the stands. And I'm sitting there, and I'm not even going to ask a question. I'm so intimidated. It's the first thing, and I'm just happy to be there. I'm the only woman in the scrum. And all of a sudden, we start, and Emmitt just goes like this, and boom, looks just right at me. And I'm like, and just sat there. Like I had just
you gotta give me something.
Completely, and for real, as a young woman with no confidence. And he sat there and looked at me for about 20 seconds like, I'm giving you this. Like, I see you're different. And I just choked, and I sat on that for years until I finally got the confidence to make sure that I always got that first question out. So I say that to say that first Super Bowl, I remember that so much with Emmitt Smith trying to give me a kindness and me realizing how over my head I was, but also how important confidence was going to be to me as a woman in this business.
When you go back to that Super Bowl and you now look at this room, that is what are we, 30 years later?
Yeah.
What do you think? I mean, how big has this gotten?
Here's what's funny. It was really big then. It was just that's when it was starting to really explode. But now I'm warped in terms of COVID. Changed it so much. Yeah. And so it went from being really big and a spectacle to all of a sudden being a small room and being like, this used to be so crazy and fun. This is the first year it's felt like that. And normally, I wish everyone could see, I know you've already done it, but it's crazy in here. This is normally a Friday. And so what I've seen this year is Wednesday is the new Friday.
Yeah.
And it's pre-COVID days that it's so many people. But it used to be all players and celebrities. Now the people that you're being pitched and I'm being pitched also, it's more people who are helping the athletes. It's businesses, it's corporations. That's changed a lot.
Yeah, and it's been great for us to be able to get some access to some people because of some of the great things that they're doing. We talked to Brian Brzee of the Saints earlier, who's working with Big Brother and Big Sister of America and things like that. So that's been great, and it's another great part of this whole event that's just not just on the field. I know that you're going to be on the sidelines coming up on Sunday, and you've had some conversations with members of both teams. We just had the play-by-play voice of the Chiefs on the show, Miss Holtis, and I asked him, what do you think motivates Andy Reid here? And he's right there in the top 5 all times in wins. He could tie Chuck Noll with his 4th Super Bowl on Sunday. You spoke to him. I mean, do you think that he's close to the end? Do you think he still is having a blast? Do you think he's motivated by history? Or is he just talking about the Eagles on Sunday?
I think Andy Reid has never changed, no matter where he is. And we had a long conversation about this, of what still drives you. And besides history books, what does it mean to you? And what he said, what he's most proud of. And I was asking him, watching this turnover of coaches right now, everyone wants to find the next Andy Reid, right? But they keep firing coaches after 1 year and 3 years. It's hard to find an Andy Reid when you're doing that.
Right.
But he said what he's so proud of is how much he's changed with the times and how much he hasn't resisted that and how much he's changed with the players. And so I think each Super Bowl or each championship is so different to him because I think he evolves. And that you can't say that for a lot of the coaches who just stay to who they are, Belichickian, right? And it's the system and everybody comes in and you just keep doing it his way, which has been very successful for that time. But I think Andy is driven by the teaching, and I think Andy is driven by the relationships. And one thing he also told me for this third straight Super Bowl, he's like, we have a lot of new guys, and I let my veterans take over here. Like, they were the guys coaching up these young guys and these new guys to tell them this is what you can expect. So I think he's really proud of that also, is how much he's raised not just his coaches, but also his players.
Travis Kelce is one of those players. He's a guy that you talked to earlier this week as well. And he's obviously got some opportunities off the football field that are pretty substantial. Do you get the sense that we're seeing the end of his career? I'm fully expecting him to catch 2 touchdowns and 120 yards worth of balls.
And propose to Taylor Swift.
That could happen too.
That's not happening.
That's what my wife's more interested in, quite frankly.
I have such great annual conversations with Travis at the Super Bowl. I love them so much, and we kind of continued. We started it, and then we continue each time we do this. So what I told him this week was, 2 years ago, I called it Finding Yourself. We talked about how immature he was. We talked about how much he's grown. We talked about the work he's done to be the person he is. So I said that we're going to call Finding Yourself. Last year was all about Taylor, and we called that one Finding Love. So I said, okay, so from finding yourself to finding love, what are you finding now? And I thought he was going to say history. Like, I kind of was serving that up.
Sure.
And what he said was, I'm not finding anything, I'm in it. And he said, I'm so happy right now in every way of my life and who I'm surrounded by. And I don't think he said football until the third thing. It was just about he's in love, his family, he's so happy, the nieces, and this whole life. And then he just said, like, I'm just trying to enjoy every minute of this as long as it lasts. So I don't know. He has so many opportunities. And as always, he watches his brother to see how he's doing it. And I don't know if he says, like, I'm having fun, let's do one more year, or if he just goes, God, the whole world is open right now, and I want to go taste some of that. But I truly don't think he knows at this moment.
It's interesting stuff. He's obviously such a public figure. I mean, my wife knows as much about he does as I do, and she doesn't watch football ever. So it's just it's an interesting thing that he's maybe a top 5 tight end of all time, and still might have more opportunity when he decides not to be a tight end.
It's one of the things I've loved about both of them, watching them. And can I tell you this? Like, this is how different he was. And I remember first meeting him and, like, being like, when he was doing the Travis Kelce dating show. Like, he wasn't someone you'd think your wife should know. You know, like, you'd be like, he's got some growing up to do. But I remember talking to him during that afterwards and asking about his evolution of how he's grown up from the kid who was almost kicked off the team for getting high all the time, his brother having to save him, doing the reality show. And I was like, what changed in you to kind of get your act together? And he said, I did an exercise where I pretended there was a camera on me facing me. And I thought to myself, I want to see what people think of me when they look at me. And I was like, what'd you find? Can I swear on the show?
You can't.
I can't? Okay. So he said, I understood why they thought I was a jerk. Let's just say a jerk.
Okay.
So I understood why they thought I was a jerk. And I just remember being like, well, that's pretty wise of this young guy being like, let me turn it on myself and go, I see why people are saying this. And I don't think I am that. And so I want to be better. And so what I've loved about Travis since that conversation is, like, he has worked for this. He has earned it. And like your wife, I hope, says, I love seeing him and Taylor in love. Like, I hope other men see what it looks like for a couple to support each other.
That's all she says. He supports her. It's
yes, and
end game is what she says.
Taylor needed that. Like, she needed a man to support her. And how much do we love watching her support him at the games? Like,
sure.
it's I talked to him about it this week. Like, it's been really cool, the evolution of the relationship. I have an organization for women in sports, and so what it started was all these young women being like, I can be a Swiftie and I can be a sports fan. Like, I didn't know I could merge peanut butter and chocolate. So that was the beginning, and now I have more conversation with men this year, all being like, I love watching the way he treats her. Like, I want my wife at the games. I want, it's been a really cool thing of how we've put our stuff onto this couple.
We're listening to Laura Okmin. Great conversation here. She's, of course, with NFL on Fox. Westwood One. She'll be on the sidelines coming up on Sunday. Saquon Barkley's the last player I wanted to talk to you about.
Yeah.
That's quite a change of scenery from the dysfunction in New York to now with the Super Bowl, and he almost set a rushing record in the regular season. What do you think that journey has been like for him?
I love my conversation with him this week. So I brought it back to a conversation I had with him in 2022, and he had missed a lot of time the season before. And he talked about, after missing the time and coming back, how it changed him so much because he missed the bus rides and he missed the plane rides and he missed the huddle. And I was like, did you miss football? And he's like, yes, but you don't realize like all the other stuff, where he's like, of course I missed the game. But he came back with a different appreciation, and he said, my goal now is to show my personality while I play. And like he said, I think I've been this football player and a person and merging it. And so what we talked about in our conversation was, I said, was it just having the game taken away from you? And he goes, in therapy. And like, I'm telling you, the conversation I've had with more guys the last 5 years, and I meet with them every week with the NFL on Fox, the word therapy comes up constantly, and these guys realizing the mental work they do and the mental work they do off the field directly translates. So I think he's having a ball, but what he told me is winning's part of it. That's what everyone sees, but he's loving his life right now.
I'm sitting here, and our media company is represented right here, and I see Alondra, and I see Rivers, and I see Michelle right there. We've got as many women here representing us as we do men. You've got Galvanize. I just want to know what you've seen in the growth of women in this industry since you talked about your first Super Bowl in '92, and what does Galvanize do for that?
I remember '92 and every Super Bowl since, and every Olympic since, and NHL All-Stars or World Series, every big event I've ever covered when I was young, I would count women. And I did it because I could.
Yeah.
And so for a long time it was on one hand, and then it got to two hands, and then like you just said, like we could never count. There's so many women. So the growth has been unbelievable, but if we counted women in power, and if we counted women who are making the decisions of how to move forward, we still are on one hand. And so I hope what Galvanize does is give these young women something I didn't have when I started, which is a great group of women around them. And so, I mean, we're over 5,000 women now, and it started, I started it 15 years ago just because there weren't anything for women in sports back then. And we are in front of the camera, we're behind the camera, we are in radio, we're in TV, we're PR, we're marketing, we're everything. And I'm hoping that not just raising, these wonderful, talented women and what they do, but the whole mantra of Galvanize is you're who, not your do. So everything we do and everything we do in our interviews and our content is all about who you are, not what you do, which is why I talk about Saquon and therapy, or why I talk about Kelsey and being in love. Like, that's the stuff that always has lit me up. And for a long time, I didn't talk about that because I thought that was girly. And so I thought, well, I just have to tell you the difference between a 3-4 and a 4-3 so you'll respect me, and then realize, but that's not what's lighting me up. I spent a long time proving I knew what I was talking about, and then finally I got to add to that, but what do I care about? And it's the people. So I hope Galvanize, that organization, I hope that's an extension of all of that.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. Appreciate you taking a little bit of time with us. Enjoy the week and have a great call on Sunday.
Thank you. You too. Have a great week.
I sure will. That's Laura Okmin, NFL on Fox and Westwood One. You can hear her on the sidelines coming up for the Super Bowl on Sunday. We'll take a timeout, come back with more. Still a lot to do on this Wednesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Audio Video Security Solutions, avssla.com is the website. If you're looking for a place to watch the game because you're thinking, I don't know if my home is the best place to have an awesome game watching experience. Well, you can change that. Mitchell Fisher and his team at Audio Video Security Solutions are happy to do it. They can do your TV installation. They can do your surround sound installation. They can make it as high-tech or as low-tech as you want. They can make it voice-activated. You can walk in and say, watch the game, and the blinds can come down, the television can come on, and surround sound can perk up, and that can be as high-tech as you want, or it's simple as installing a television. Whatever you want your home entertainment system to look like so that you can watch the big games at home and feel like this is an awesome spot to be, Mitchell Fisher and his team can do it. And I'll give you Mitchell's cell phone number. That's why I love working with Audio Video Security Solutions. 225-439-7920. Again, that's 225-439-7920. That's Mitchell's cell. He'll be your point person at Audio Video Security Solutions for whatever it is from an audio, video, and security perspective that you want to accomplish. Check him out online at avssla.com, avssla.com.
The Hunt Palmer Show, live from Super Bowl 59 Radio Row in New Orleans. Presented by L'Auberge Casino Hotel, Baton Rouge.
Man, it's been a whirlwind today. I feel like I have a chance to reset now. We've had guests in the last, I think, 4 segments. Is that right? We had Brian Brzee to kick off the show. Oh, then we had a little bit of a break there where I could talk a little LSU basketball and baseball. Then we had Q Myers from ESPN Radio's national lineup, had Mitch Holtis, the play-by-play voice of the Chiefs, and then just had a great conversation there with Laura Okmin. And there have been different perspectives. You got Q Myers from a national perspective, just kind of talking ball and the national storylines around this game. Obviously talked in depth about the Chiefs, not just this Chiefs team, but a good long run in Kansas City there with Mitch Holtis. And then really a lot of off-the-field discussion there with Laura Okmin. I love talking to sideline reporters because they get information that we just can't get. I can look up how the Chiefs have done in the red zone this year. I can look up whether Saquon Barkley's had more success running behind Lane Johnson on the right or moving left off tackle. I can look at Jalen Hurts' touchdown-to-interception ratio. I can't tell you about Saquon Barkley going to therapy. I can't tell you what Travis Kelce feels about his place in life right now. And she's had those conversations because of her position with Westwood One. And I just found that conversation completely fascinating. And I could have kept it going for another 20 minutes if we're being quite honest. But the point that I've been making since we started the show today, back at 1 o'clock, is that this whole thing has cranked up about 3 notches here in the convention center in New Orleans. When Jake and T-Bob started on Monday, there were like 3 shows broadcasting. It was real quiet. And by the time I got on, and then certainly when Matt came on Monday, there were more afternoon drive folks here around the room. Yesterday was a little bit of a step up. We saw a little bit more folks setting up. And today, the whole thing has been elevated. The ESPN national set with McAfee's behind me is rocking and rolling. The Outkick set over there has had a bunch of folks roll through. Jaden Daniels has been here. Patrick Peterson's been here. Earlier we saw Cam Jordan walk by. I think you're going to hear some of that a little bit later. DeMario Davis is going to stop by for Matt's show. And you've got some folks making the rounds nationally. Yesterday you saw Justin Jefferson and Malik Neighbors. It's not Malik Neighbors. Those 2 names just kind of roll off my tongue together. Justin Jefferson and Michael Penix were together. So there's just a lot going on, and it's been really, really cool to just be a part of the whole thing. And I'm confident that the whole place is going to turn up even more as the week goes on. I think while it's still probably a little bit quiet from a fan perspective, from the actual Chiefs and Eagles fans in New Orleans, that'll start on Friday. I'm assuming will start filtering in pretty good. And this town should be, off the chains coming up in the next 48 hours. I'll say this, and I think that covering it from a New Orleans perspective is interesting to our fan base. Beck, if you'll grab your microphone, I want to check something with you, because I grew up in Shreveport, as we know, and there's no real animus. But I've sensed since I've lived in Baton Rouge, there's a little bit of a rivalry is way too strong, but kind of the New Orleans people prefer New Orleans to Baton Rouge, and the Baton Rouge people prefer Baton Rouge to New Orleans. Like, do you have like some anti-New Orleans in you as a Baton Rouge native?
No, I don't.
Okay, I feel like that there is some of that, and there are some people that are from Baton Rouge like, I'm not going to New Orleans, and I feel like there are some people that are from like Baton Rouge. What's there to do there? Like, why would you ever go there? But I love New Orleans, and I love spending time here, and obviously we understand the events that happened a month ago here, and we understand the security level that it entails to run a Super Bowl. And I'll tell you that if you go downtown into the French Quarter and you spend time down there, like there are military presences at every turn. So if you are, contemplating coming down here or thought, well, that's not a good idea, that's not a great place to be, it's dangerous, they have this place taken care of, in my estimation. Certainly, I don't have any qualifications for saying that, but I've been here for 3 days, been walking around, have seen, done the drive-through and whatnot, and they're taking this really seriously. And as I mentioned yesterday on the show, they have dressed this place up. It looks really, really good downtown. And I've never been to a Super Bowl anywhere else, and I'm not going to be here this weekend for this Super Bowl. But I do know New Orleans. I know the proximity that all of the restaurants and bars have to this place, to the hotel that a lot of the media folks are staying in, to the Superdome, and what this place can be when it's at its best. And I fully anticipate that the next 72 hours are going to be awesome for the city of New Orleans. The weather from a warmth standpoint looks good. There may be a little bit of rain, but it just feels like that this place is putting on its best face. And while I asked back that question about kind of the rivalry, like I'm a native Louisianian. I grew up in Shreveport. I've lived in Baton Rouge, both of them for 18 years. I never lived in New Orleans. I spent the weeks here for about 10 months. But I've got a lot of pride in the city of New Orleans because it's part of the state that I love a ton. And so for the nation to come down here, it's why if you've been listening to the show for any degree of time today and yesterday, you've heard me ask all these folks that have come in nationally from Kansas City, from Vegas, from LA, from New York, wherever they've been coming in from. I've asked, like, how have you liked your experience? And to a man, outside of one yesterday, we had had Darren Hill on, who covers the Chiefs, and he was a little disappointed in the NFL experience not being open yet, which has nothing to do with New Orleans. So when he said that he wasn't over the moon about it, it had nothing to do with the city or the restaurants or the hotel scene or the proximity or the public transportation or any of that. It had everything to do with the fact that he wanted to see the NFL experience, and that hadn't been set up yet. So I'm not going to hold that one against the city of New Orleans just yet, but everyone has felt like it's been great, and I feel like if the NFL's never going to put a permanent rotation together like the Open Championship does in golf or like the National Championship does in football, where they kind of keep it in the same 4, 5, 6 places. They're going to give everybody their opportunity, especially when they build a new place. I think that the NFL is always going to come back to New Orleans because of how well this place handles things. And you can make jokes about the lights going out the last time and all that kind of stuff, but when they put their mind to it and they decide that we're going to host something this important, New Orleans does it phenomenally. I would personally rather go to a Final Four and see that spectacle than go to the actual Super Bowl. That's just the nature of my interest in college football and college basketball. But this is a big, big deal, and it's been a thrill for us to be here now for half a week, and I can't wait to see what the next couple of days have to show us. If you're thinking about coming to New Orleans, thinking, I may like to go to the Super Bowl. Well, I was checking out prices over the last couple of days, and they're substantial. But if you got some means and you're looking around, you may have an opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, and we'll chat about that when we come back from our next time out. StubHub's Adam Budelli is going to be with us to kind of talk about the process and just how big the Super Bowl is. StubHub sells tickets to everything. They're involved in whatever it is that you may want to be going to, and the Super Bowl has got to be, I'm guessing, the biggest of them all. And we'll talk to Adam when we come back after this timeout. You're listening to a Wednesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Back here on Radio Row, Super Bowl 59 coming up on Sunday. We're here thanks to our friends at LeBerge, Baton Rouge. Appreciate them for allowing us to be here all week long. We've heard kind of a local angle from Brian Brzee of the Saints, Q Myers from ESPN, as well as Laura Okmin from the NFL on Fox and Westwood One. Kind of gave us a national perspective. Mitch Holtz has talked to us from a Chiefs perspective. Now let's get it from a ticket perspective. It's our pleasure to welcome to our set here StubHub's Adam Budelli. Adam, thanks for some time. How are you?
I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing very well. So how many Super Bowls for you?
It'll be 8th one here at StubHub.
8th one at StubHub. Okay, so this, I've been telling everybody, this is our first time. We're local out of Baton Rouge, so we're not going to go to Santa Clara or Miami for a Super Bowl, but they're here, so we can drive down the road and do it. This is a huge spectacle for us. We've never seen anything quite like this, and I'm curious, is this the biggest event of the year for StubHub?
This is the biggest single-day sporting event.
Okay.
Obviously, cumulatively, it depends on how the game will end up, but certainly the Super Bowl is a life in itself, and this is probably the only city that it's somehow like the appetizer before Mardi Gras in a few weeks.
Right.
It's unique that this isn't going to be your biggest day of the year.
So tell me about the process for Super Bowl tickets and kind of when the rush happens and how that market works, because if you're talking about a huge game that teams are playing in season, about that for months. These fan bases don't know that they're here until 2 weeks out, and certainly the corporations know they want to be there win or where. So it's kind of the build up to Super Bowl Sunday for y'all?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it really starts almost a year in advance in terms of vetting and making sure that every ticket that comes on our site is 100% approved and verified. The biggest thing that we always tell fans is you actually want to wait. The worst time to buy a ticket for a Super Bowl or some of these marquee events is the first 48 hours after your team has actually clinched.
Okay.
And really, it's that kind of middle of the week. So right now is actually probably one of the best times and most affordable we've seen a Super Bowl in most recent years.
That's interesting. And I'll tell you, this is a true story. LSU played in the national championship game in January of 2008, 2007 year. I was a sophomore at LSU, and I had a ticket. I got a ticket through my student pass and had paid for it and had gotten it. And it was a gorgeous big ticket that we had, and the lettering on that had the date on it was punched out. And one of my friends came up to me with like 6 hours before kick and goes, "I just got this ticket for $120 on the street." And I was like, "Can I see that?" Faded, didn't have the holes punched, like just absolutely got taken for a ride, and it had spent $150, which is a college kid. That was a big deal. And that kind of stuff can happen if you're not careful, and obviously that's where y'all come in.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing is whether you shop on StubHub or another marketplace, you want to make sure it is a trusted source because there unfortunately are a lot of people out there that are trying to scam, and that's why the beauty of going mobile-only tickets now is you should never be paying for a ticket off the street in cash because I can assure you if they're handing you a piece of paper, it's not a real Super Bowl ticket.
Right. Yeah, because everything's digital at this point now. I've always got a credential badge around when I'm going to sporting events, so I haven't done that in a little bit. But that's interesting. So you mentioned that this may be one of the most affordable times to come in and buy. I'm curious, as time goes toward kickoff, what generally do y'all see, Super Bowl or just another big game?
Yeah, when it comes to a big game, especially like the Super Bowl, you have to throw out what we're all used to. If it's an LSU game or another sporting event, where typically during the regular season, prices will go down. However, we certainly expect and have seen it most recently just in 2 weeks ago in Atlanta for the CFP Championship, prices skyrocketed as you got closer. With the amount of people still to come, it's only Wednesday afternoon here.
Right.
Airport, I've heard, is quite the disaster today. It will only get worse tomorrow heading into the weekend. So as more and more people come, it's not like tickets are endless. And certainly that's where at some point people are going to start buying, and that's where you'll see the price actually probably move back up.
This may not be a question that you can answer, but I'm curious if you can. I've never been to a Super Bowl. Do you find that most of the tickets that y'all are selling week of are going to fans of one of the teams or people that want to go to the Super Bowl? Is there a way to trace that?
It's always hard to exactly know. What I can say, though, is, we can based off of where they are. So, so far to date, we've had about 21% of our ticket sales coming from the state of Pennsylvania. So assume Eagles, as compared to only 10% there in Kansas and Missouri. So clearly, as expected, that lean's going to be towards the Philadelphia Eagle fans. The other big thing that we've noticed, too, is with the softening of the market, if you can say that, we're still talking about a, $2,800, $3,000 ticket.
Right.
However, since Monday, we've seen a massive increase of 47% from the state of Louisiana. So
really?
Showing that sporting event fans here are going to probably get a chance to go see a Super Bowl, whether the Saints are in it or not.
For sure, and that's fascinating stuff. Do you think the demand would have been higher if the Chiefs weren't here? I've been asking people that cover this game from a media perspective, like, are you sick of the Chiefs? And I've gotten probably 75%, like, kind of.
Yeah, from a ticketing side, certainly the Bills fans would have. They haven't been in many years. You're talking about 5 out of the 6 Super Bowls, so certainly you're going to see a little bit of a dip. So I would say yes, the Bills certainly would be driving a little bit of a higher price. But the other piece too is, what comes into it is the amount of hotels. What that price is just to get here for the game, and then that also dictates where we are. And I think that's what we're seeing a little bit with the hotel prices being a little bit higher than normal.
Yes, they are. What about New Orleans as compared to, Santa Clara or Miami or Houston or Indianapolis or wherever? I don't even know off the top of my head where all the Super Bowls are. They're all the same to me because I'm in the living room. But what about New Orleans as far as the ticket market goes?
Yeah, I think overall it's a great market, and I think the ability that everyone's going to be within walking distance for the most part if you're staying down here, that leads to it. We saw that last year in Vegas, and that's where that demand really comes from, is that, most people are sitting there waiting on their phones. If you can decide last minute if you want that area around you, Other markets are slightly a little bit different. How do you get to the game? But having a Super Bowl be able to be walkable, we saw in Vegas. That's why we're predicting probably prices will go up from here.
And that's the beauty of New Orleans, I think, because I haven't been to Super Bowls. I've been to a lot of the sites where they hold Super Bowls, and I think New Orleans has such a great proximity to the hotels, to the restaurants, to the bars, to the stadium, whereas, like, I've been to the Cowboy Stadium where they've certainly played a Super Bowl, and, like, not much out there. So, like, you're either there or you're not. And here you might just kind of be around and go, okay, let's make that work. Is that kind of what you're speaking to?
Oh, I'm sure Bourbon Street will be loaded with fans that would be happy to go to the game if prices fall, but most likely than not, they can enjoy the game from one of the many bars there. And similar to last year, like I mentioned, Vegas, like if you're in Mandalay Bay, you saw thousands of people just staring at their phones hoping the prices went down.
Yep.
Didn't. I'm sure they found their way to another watch party along the Strip.
I'm going to ask a selfish question here that has nothing to do with the Super Bowl. This has to do more with my goofball friends over there. So I've got a 3-year-old who eventually is going to get into football, and I've spent some time watching Saints ticket prices, even up to like Sunday morning, and looking at it like 9 o'clock and thinking, man, those really crashed. Do you find that, not for the Super Bowl, for regular season events, NBA, for the NFL, for MLB, that like the day of is just an awesome time, just jump on there and go? I mean, is that generally when prices dip to their lowest?
Certainly for an average game. Now, if
Okay.
you're talking about, Falcons being here, maybe that slightly changes with some of the closer rivalries. But yeah, we've certainly seen a massive trend into that last 48 hours. And within there, a couple of things happened. One, season ticket holders tend to list last, change. But also, things come up in other people's lives. They don't want to go. And all of a sudden, there's a lot of opportunity for a great time to buy. So certainly, I always say, hey, use, technology for your tips. Follow the prices during the regular season. When it comes to, LSU Saturday night game against Alabama, you might need to throw that out a little bit.
That's when everybody calls me and says, can you get me a ticket?
Yeah.
No, I don't even have a ticket. I got one of those credentials to go sit in the press box, but I get that for sure. So you're feeling like more green than red in the Dome and a good sizable chunk of New Orleans folks in the Superdome on Sunday. That's kind of the sense you're getting?
I think so. That's what it appears to be so far, which is great. I mean, look, anytime a Super Bowl, last year was candidly a little crazy what we saw some of the prices. So, you want the Super Bowl to be approachable to a lot of people. We've already had 49 out of the 50 states show a purchase, as well as 17 different countries. So the Super Bowl itself is a lot bigger than just the two fan bases, which I think that's where a lot of that demand also comes.
Talked about this. The table next to us is speaking Portuguese, I think, from Brazil. So it's like that's shows the scale of what we're doing here. When I covered LSU and Clemson in the national championship game, nobody from Brazil was here making that happen. So what does the rest of the week look like for you?
Yeah, hey, we're just going around having conversations like this, trying to educate the fans that may still be looking to go and getting excited for the game.
How do you like New Orleans as a site for this? You're traveling all over the place.
I love it. I do live in San Francisco Bay Area, so it's a little bit harder. No direct flights for the most part.
Sure.
But, hey, once you're here, to have the city walkable, tremendous food, everything's so close from all the different events and meetings and opportunities. So I certainly would vote to have you guys have another Super Bowl here soon.
I hope so. I love this city and love when the events come to town. And generally speaking, I think the city does an awesome job of hosting it. We're halfway home here, and I think the rest of the week's just going to be a whole lot better. He's Adam Budelli from StubHub. We appreciate some time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Love the conversation with our friend Adam Budelli there. We'll let him get on. We got one segment left to go. Don't go anywhere. It's a Wednesday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com is the website. Every car that's on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. And if you're one of those folks that might be in the market for a vehicle, but I don't really like going to the dealership because I feel like I'm under a lot of pressure. I feel like I'm being sold something, upsold here and there. You're never going to run into that at Genesis of Baton Rouge. They're going to treat you like a guest, not like a customer. Their brand ambassadors are so helpful, and if you really just don't feel like you want to go to the dealership, they'll come to you, whether that's at your place of business, whether that's at home. They'll drive to you. They'll let you test drive that vehicle from wherever you are. And then if you want to make that purchase, they can deliver those vehicles. They can do e-contracts. You never have to set foot on the dealership. I would recommend you do. It's right there, Airline at Pico, across from Women's Hospital. And it's a phenomenal facility. If you've never been by, and there's a possibility that's true because they hadn't been there for 2 years, make it one of your stops on your list when you're in the market for a new vehicle. It's right there at Genesis of Baton Rouge. Every single car comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. 10 years, 100,000 miles. It's a good deal. Get on by and see them at Genesis of Baton Rouge.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
OTB, AFR, and the Hunt Palmer Show have been bringing you live coverage from Radio Row, welcoming you up to Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. Our coverage is presented locally by LeBear's Casino Hotel Baton Rouge. You can listen on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge and watch on the 104.5 ESPN YouTube channel. And 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge and Citizens Bank and Trust want to help cover your car payments. It's a $5,000 grand prize with a bonus chance to win free car washes from Benny's Car Wash for 6 months. We're also letting you earn extra entries by subscribing to our LouisianaSports.net daily newsletter. To sign up, visit 1045ESPN.com.
We're winding things down, at least from the Hunt Palmer Show perspective here on this Wednesday. Matt's got a loaded AFR coming from 3 to 6 that I know of. He's having Demario Davis, Kyle Turley. Hopefully there's no helmets around to be chucked anywhere with authority. Jarvis Green going to jump aboard with him as well, former LSU Tiger and New England Patriot. So lots and lots coming up for you on After Further Review. But it's been a really fun show for us here from 1 to 3. We've had a ton of guests and ton of great conversation leading up to this game. I did squeeze a little bit of local talk into the mix, talked a little bit about LSU in Georgia tonight. I'll kind of briefly recap that. These are two teams that don't shoot the ball well from 3 at all. These are two teams that really aren't very good offensively, but they pride themselves on defense. It could be a bit of a rock fight. If one team gets hot at all, you feel like they may run away from the other one, but that shouldn't happen based on the way those two teams have played defense. Second half on Saturday, notwithstanding for LSU, and the way that generally both teams shoot it. They're both two teams that are desperate to win a game. It's going to be a really late night tip in Athens in front of a crowd that has been good for them, but I don't know how they're going to draw on a Wednesday night at 9 o'clock. That's a tall ask. So we'll see. I'm confident that LSU should stay in the game. I'm not confident that LSU will win the game. I can't say that for sure. And I don't say that I'm confident LSU will stay in the game because they're really good or they're playing great basketball. I just don't think Georgia is very good. So we'll see what happens tonight. I would pick Georgia to win. I would probably pick LSU to cover an 8-point number at that point. So we'll recap it tomorrow. I'll have a story up on LouisianaSports.net tomorrow that'll recap it. I have a preview piece up right now that's talking about the game, but you may not want to go check that out. You may, though, want to check out the starting pitching preview that I did on LouisianaSports.net earlier today. It's got my projected starting rotation in it. I'll go ahead and tell you right now. I think that you're going to see Cade Anderson on Friday of next week. I think that you will see Anthony Ianson on Saturday of next week, and I think Chase Shores is probably the guy that I would suggest that you would see on Sunday, and I have a reason for that. I've talked about it a little bit throughout the course of the fall and into the spring. I call this the spring. It's still dead of winter, but baseball season, you feel like it's the spring. If you remember last year, LSU really struggled in Game 3s in the first half of SEC play. They were playing rubber games, and they were getting beat. They were playing games to fend off a sweep, and they were getting beat. And it wasn't like they were getting beat by run-of-the-mill pitchers. Jurangelo Sanger from Mississippi State pitched against them in the first Sunday. He throws 97 miles an hour with both arms and was the 15th overall pick in the draft. That's who LSU saw on a Sunday for Mississippi State. They lost the game. Jack Caglione was who they saw the next week on Sunday in a marble game. He throws 97. He was the 6th overall pick in the draft. Yes, that was to hit more than to pitch, but you get the point. He's a pretty talented dude. Brady Tigert pitched when LSU went to Fayetteville in Game 3. LSU was trying to fight off a sweep. Couldn't do it. Tigert was a closer for Arkansas because his slider was so good, and he ended up being a 12th-round pick because injuries sidetracked his career at Arkansas, but he's a really talented arm. Then LSU came home and played Vanderbilt. They played a rubber game in Game 3, and they saw Carter Holton, who had been Vanderbilt's Friday night starter, but because of one, a little injury, and two, they had a Thursday, Friday, Saturday series, they pushed Carter Holton back to Sunday. You saw him. He was a second-round pick who you saw on Sunday. And then they went to Knoxville, and they got swept, and they lost Game 3 to Xander Sechrist, who ended up pitching Game 3 of the championship series for Tennessee and winning a national championship. So, Jurangelo Sanger, Jack Caglione, Brady Tigert, Carter Holton, Xander Sechrist, these are elite-level arms, some of the most talented arms in the country that LSU was seeing in Game 3s. And I think Jay Johnson watched that while he was trying to patchwork things together with whoever was left between Nate Ackenhausen and Sam Dutton and whatever he could cobble together in a Game 3. I think he saw that and went, what if I put some talent in Game 3 that maybe wasn't the ace right out of the chute, but there's some real high-end stuff. Chase Shores makes a lot of sense there. I think he makes a ton of sense. Say a team has traveled to Baton Rouge, played deep into the night on Friday, played another game on Saturday, long day at the ballpark, come in on Sunday. That's a day where you might be a little bit mentally exhausted, maybe a little physically exhausted, third game in a row, got a flight to catch that evening, and you got Chase Shores throwing 97 miles an hour from a 6'8" arm slot. Like that, to me, sounds like a quality idea. And I don't think Chase Shores right now is to the point where he can be that ace on a Friday night. So maybe you put him there on Sunday and think, well, we're going to have the most talented arm on the mound right now. And that's maybe in a way that LSU can approach things in Game 3s moving forward. So, Beck, I got a couple more things I can talk about, but I didn't ask you in the break. Do you have any take it or leave it for me here, or do we need to just keep on working for the next 4 minutes?
Got a few.
Hit me.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
Just take it.
All right, first one here. The NFL Players Association's executive director, Lloyd Howell, had some media availability for the Super Bowl and pushed back against NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell's recent statement that safety data favors expanding the regular season, saying, quote, frankly, we're not sure how he's reached that conclusion based on the data we've been given access to, Howell said during the NFLPA's annual news conference today. Howell was asked about the NFLPA's current stance on an 18-game season and said that Goodell said on Monday that it was a possibility, but he said that no one wants to play an 18th game. No one. There will be an 18th game in the NFL season soon. Take it or leave it. Or leave it.
Take it. As soon as Goodell can put it on the schedule. Absolutely immediately, because there's more money in it. And under no circumstances could any data suggest that playing an additional football game is better for player safety. Football, not exactly great for safety of any kind. We've watched enough to understand that. But money wins. It always wins. It will win again, and they will absolutely play an 18th game. There's no doubt in my mind.
All right, Hunt, this is some breaking news for you that I think you're going to be really excited about. Live Golf have announced major changes to their scoring system. They announced this today in preparation for their first tournament, which will be in Riyadh, which I will be giving you some fancy picks for, don't worry. But for the first time in the circuit's history, every player's score in every round will count towards their team's total score. Last season, just the best 3 scores were taken in the first 2 rounds, with all 14 members counting only for the final 18 holes. It does make volatility bigger and crazier. Nobody can hide. Range Goats captain Bubba Watson said you're going to have to be committed on every hole, every shot. Take it or leave it.
Leave it. Everybody can hide because nobody knows where you're playing or who's on what team or who won or who didn't win or who shot 80 or who shot 58. Nobody cares. Nobody knows. Take the money. Stop doing interviews. Play your golf that nobody cares about next.
That's it. That's it.
Great. Got me in a bad mood, Beck, with all your live golf chatter. I had a great show today. This was one of my favorite shows I've ever done on radio because we had so many great conversations, and you're bringing me Bubba Watson's Range Goats takes on Liv's new format. How do you feel about yourself bringing that into the close of the show?
Well, Hunt, I just know that you care to know. You want to be up to date with Liv news as much as possible, so I just had to bring it to you.
I'm upset with you. So just understand that's where I am at this point.
Okay.
But I appreciate all your hard work. That's it for a Wednesday edition. It was a great one. Had a blast today from Radio Row. Again, thanks to the folks at LeBear's for making it possible. Brian Brzee opened the show. You can certainly find that at Hunt on Saints on YouTube. And he had a great conversation. We also talked LSU Clemson a little bit at the top of the show with Brian Brzee, who is a Clemson Tiger. Q Myers from ESPN Radio, their national lineup, was with us at 1:30, kind of breaking down this game. Had a great conversation with Mitch Holtis, the play-by-play voice of the Kansas City Chiefs, who pretty confident about what the Chiefs have done and will do on Sunday. Laura Okmin was awesome at the first top of the segment of hour number 2. She's with NFL on Fox and Westwood 1, and shed some great light on some conversations she's had with some of the players leading up to this Super Bowl. And Adam Budelli was awesome from StubHub just a few moments ago. Missed any of it? Catch it wherever you find your on-demand audio. Matt's coming up with AFR. We'll see you tomorrow from Radio Row.